Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be exploring this whole concept of marginalization,
Okay.
what it means, how it unfolds in societies, and why it matters.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking specifically at two communities in India,
Okay.
the Adivasis and the Muslims.
Sounds good.
So to kick things off, can you just give us a quick overview
Sure.
of what it means to be marginalized?
Yeah. So, it's really about understanding
Yeah.
how certain groups can be pushed to the edges,
Okay.
not just physically, but also in terms of power,
Hmm.
resources, and even cultural recognition.
So it's not just about being a minority.
Right.
It's about that feeling of being on the periphery,
Exactly.
of being overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have felt that at some point,
Absolutely.
even in small ways.
We've all experienced moments of feeling left out
Yeah.
or unheard, but imagine that feeling amplified
Oh, wow.
and ingrained into the very fabric of society.
Okay, yeah, that's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
So let's get specific.
Okay.
You send over some really fascinating material on the Adivasis,
Right.
who are often referred to as the original inhabitants of India.
Yeah.
And their connection to the forests is so profound.
It is.
It's almost impossible to separate the two.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've lived in and off the forest for centuries,
Right.
practicing shifting agriculture,
Mhm.
hunting, gathering,
Yeah.
and possessing this intricate knowledge of plants and ecosystems
Wow.
that's been passed down
Okay.
through generations.
It's like a living library of traditional ecological knowledge.
It is.
It's incredible. But it seems this way of life is being increasingly threatened.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
What's happening?
Well, as India modernizes and development projects ramp up,
Yeah.
there's growing pressure on forest lands.
Okay.
Things like mining dams,
Mm-hmm.
industrial expansion.
Yeah.
All of these contribute to the displacement of
Right.
Adivasi communities.
We saw a statistic that over half the people.
Displaced by mining projects in India are Adivasis.
That's a huge number.
It's a staggering number.
Yeah.
What happens to these communities when they're forced off their land?
It's often a devastating cycle.
Okay.
They lose not only their homes and livelihoods, but also their spiritual connection to the land,
Yeah.
their cultural practices,
Mm-hmm.
and their sense of identity.
Wow.
It pushes them into poverty
Okay.
and further marginalizes them.
It's like severing the very roots that sustain them.
Yeah, you could say that.
We also read about this man named Govinda Maran,
Oh, yes.
who was displaced by a refinery project.
Right.
And he talked about losing everything.
It was heartbreaking.
Their land cremation grounds,
Oh.
temples, wells.
Everything.
It was heartbreaking.
That story really encapsulates the depth of the loss.
Yeah.
It's not just about material possessions.
Right.
It's about their entire way of life being disrupted, the cultural fabric being torn apart.
And it makes you question, what is progress? If it comes at the cost of such profound cultural and ecological damage.
Exactly. And it raises important questions about whose voices are heard, whose needs are prioritized,
Right.
and who ultimately benefits from these development projects.
It's a complex issue
It is.
with layers upon layers of impact.
Yeah.
Before we move on, is there anything else about Adivasis and their marginalization
Yeah.
that you think is important to highlight?
I think it's also crucial to address how they're often stereotyped
Okay.
in popular culture.
Okay.
They're frequently portrayed as exotic dancers or simple villagers,
Right.
reducing their complex lives and knowledge systems
Yeah.
to simplistic caricatures.
It's like their entire identity is flattened and distorted.
Exactly.
It perpetuates this lack of understanding
Yeah,
and reinforces their marginalization.
it does.
So it's essential to move beyond those stereotypes
Absolutely.
and to recognize the depth and richness of Adivasi culture
Yes.
and their crucial role in protecting India's biodiversity. So moving from the forests to a different context,
Okay.
you also sent us information on the marginalization of Muslims in India.
Right.
What stood out to you from the data and reports we reviewed?
One thing that immediately struck me was the stark disparity
Yeah.
in educational outcomes for Muslim children.
Okay.
Compared to other communities.
Right.
They have lower average years of schooling and higher dropout rates.
Wow, that's a significant gap.
It is.
What contributes to this educational disadvantage?
Well, there are various factors, including poverty, limited access to quality schools,
Right.
and social discrimination.
Okay.
It creates this vicious cycle
Yeah.
that perpetuates their marginalization,
Right.
impacting job prospects, earning potential, and overall well-being.
It's like a domino effect where one disadvantage leads to another.
Exactly.
And it's further compounded by social and cultural factors.
Yes.
We see instances of prejudice and discrimination
Right.
based on religious beliefs and practices, leading to feelings of exclusion
Yeah.
and sometimes even violence.
It's true.
We also came across this concept of ghettoization,
Right.
where Muslims are often concentrated in specific areas.
Yeah.
Can you explain this phenomenon a bit further?
Sure, it's a complex issue
Right.
with both internal and external pressures at play. Sometimes it's driven by social and economic factors,
Right?
with limited housing options and employment opportunities.
Okay.
In other areas,
I see.
other times it stems from a desire for safety and solidarity
Yeah.
within a community facing discrimination.
So it's a multifaceted issue, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It seems like marginalization operates on multiple levels,
Yeah.
intertwining economic, social, and cultural dimensions.
It does. It's all connected.
And it's important to address each of these layers
Right.
to create a truly inclusive society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Absolutely.
Before we move on to discussing potential solutions and strategies for addressing marginalization, are there any other key points about the challenges faced by Muslims in India?
You know, there is one that
one?
we haven't touched on yet.
There.
There's this common belief
Okay.
that Muslims prefer madrasas or religious schools
Okay.
over mainstream education.
Right.
However, data shows
Yeah.
that the majority of Muslim children actually attend government or private schools.
So that stereotype is not only inaccurate,
It is.
it's also harmful because it reinforces biases and prejudices.
Exactly.
So it's crucial to challenge such stereotypes
Yeah.
and to recognize the diversity of choices and aspirations
Right.
within the Muslim community.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great point to pause on for now.
Okay.
We've delved into the complexities of marginalization,
We have.
exploring how both Adivaisis and Muslims face distinct yet interconnected challenges in India. Welcome back to our deep dive on marginalization. We spent the first part, understanding
Yeah.
the challenge.
Faced by the Adivasis and Muslims in India. And, it can feel a little heavy.
Yeah,
But I think it's crucial to acknowledge those challenges
absolutely.
before we can even begin to think about solutions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We don't shy away
Right.
from the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Sure.
Like, how can we possibly make a dent
Right.
in such deeply rooted issues?
Yeah, and that's where I think recognizing the agency of marginalized communities is so important.
Okay.
They're not passive victims.
Right.
They've been resisting and fighting for their rights for a long time.
Yeah.
The Muslim women's movement in India, for example, has
Right.
been incredibly active
Wow.
in advocating for change and challenging discriminatory practices.
That's inspiring. It's a reminder that even in the face of marginalization,
Yeah,
there's strength and resilience and a drive to create a better future.
absolutely. And their efforts pave the way for broader societal shifts.
Okay.
It's like a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
Individual acts of courage and resistance can inspire others
Right.
and ultimately contribute to systemic change.
So while the challenges are massive,
Yeah.
it's not a hopeless situation.
No, it's not.
It's about recognizing that change is possible and that we all have a role to play in making it happen.
We do.
Exactly. And remembering that it's not about fixing marginalized communities.
Right.
It's about dismantling the systems and structures
Exactly.
that create and perpetuate marginalization
That's right.
in the first place.
It's getting at the root causes.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
It's about shifting power dynamics,
Mhm.
creating a more equitable playing field, and ensuring that everyone
Right.
has the opportunity to thrive,
Yes.
regardless of their background or beliefs.
Absolutely.
And that's where things like constitutional safeguards and legal frameworks come into play.
Right. They provide a foundation for protecting minority rights and promoting equality for all.
It's like setting up the rules of the game to make sure it's fair for everyone.
Yeah.
But rules are only effective if they're enforced
That's right.
and if people actually follow them.
Absolutely. We need both.
Okay.
Robust legal frameworks and a cultural shift
Yeah.
in attitudes and behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's where things like education awareness campaigns
Okay.
and interfaith dialogues become so crucial.
So it's about challenging those deep-seated biases and prejudices
Yes.
that contribute to marginalization. And I think A lot of it starts with self-reflection.
Absolutely.
We all have biases.
They do.
Whether we're aware of them or not.
Right.
It's about being willing to examine those biases,
Yeah.
to learn from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and to actively work towards dismantling those harmful thought patterns.
I agree. It's an ongoing process,
Yeah.
not a one-time fix.
Right.
We have to be committed to constantly unlearning, and
relearning. Yeah. And I think that's where curiosity comes in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about being genuinely interested
Yes.
in understanding different perspectives,
Yeah.
different cultures, different ways of life.
Different lived experiences.
Right. And that can lead to empathy,
Mm-hmm.
to breaking down those us versus them mentalities
Exactly.
that contribute to marginalization.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity,
Yeah.
appreciating the richness that diversity brings to society, and working together to create a world where everyone feels valued and respected.
Speaking of working together, what role does the government play in all of this?
Oh, the government has a huge responsibility in addressing marginalization.
Okay.
They have the power
Yeah.
to enact policies and programs that can level the playing field, create opportunities, and empower marginalized communities.
So it's not just about passing laws.
Right.
It's about implementing those laws effectively.
Absolutely.
Ensuring they actually benefit the communities they're intended to serve.
Yeah. It requires a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
Investing in education, healthcare, and social welfare programs.
Okay.
Specifically targeted at marginalized communities.
Right.
Promoting diversity and inclusion in all sectors.
Yeah.
And actively tackling discrimination and prejudice.
It's a massive undertaking.
And it is.
But essential.
The crucial.
If we want to create a truly just and equitable society.
Yeah.
But it's not just about government action, right? What can individuals do?
Right.
What can we do?
Yeah. What can we do in our own lives to challenge marginalization?
That's a great question. And I think it's important to remember
that
even small actions can make a difference.
They can.
It starts with awareness,
Right.
with challenging our own biases and assumptions.
Exactly like that casual comment you ever hear.
Oh, yeah.
That perpetuates a stereotype.
Right.
Don't let it slide.
Don't let it slide.
Speak up.
Yeah.
Even a gentle, I'm not sure that's accurate, can plant a seed of doubt and open up a conversation.
And educate yourself.
Yes.
Read books, watch documentaries, listen to podcasts. Seek out diverse perspectives to broaden your understanding.
Absolutely.
And don't forget the power of your wallet.
Well, that's a good one.
Support businesses and organizations that prioritize ethical sourcing and fair labor practices, particularly those that work with marginalized communities.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And if you're in a position to do so, consider donating to organizations working to empower marginalized communities. There are so many incredible groups out there making a real difference on the ground.
Yeah. It all adds up.
It all adds up. Every little bit helps.
It does.
And even just having conversations about these issues with family and friends can raise awareness and create a ripple effect.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture where marginalization is not tolerated, where everyone feels safe and valued, and where diversity is celebrated as a strength.
I think that's a great note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
Exploring the complexities of marginalization, the challenges faced by Adivasis and Muslims in India, and some potential pathways towards creating a more just and equitable world.
It's been a thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
And remember, understanding is the first step. But action is what truly makes a difference.
So let's all commit to taking action, however big or small.
I agree.
To challenge marginalization in our own spheres of influence. We'll be right back after a quick message. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
I feel like we've really journeyed through this concept of marginalization, haven't we?
We have.
We examined its impact on Adivasi and Muslim communities in India, and we've explored some ways to start addressing these deeply ingrained issues.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has.
And I think what strikes me is that we can't just talk about this.
Right.
We have to do something about it.
You're absolutely right. But sometimes knowing where to start can feel so overwhelming.
Like, I get it, marginalization is bad, but what can I actually do to change things?
Right. And that's a question I wrestle with myself all the time, too.
Yeah.
I think the first step is internal. You know, it's about examining our own biases, understanding how we might be unconsciously contributing to the problem.
It's like that saying, check your blind spots.
Right.
because we all have them, and I think acknowledging those blind spots can be uncomfortable.
It can be.
But it's crucial for growth.
Absolutely. And it's not about blaming ourselves.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility for our own thoughts and actions.
Okay.
From there, we can start to make conscious choices that challenge those biases and promote inclusivity.
So what does that look like in practice? What are some concrete steps we can take?
Well, think about the spaces you occupy.
Okay.
Your workplace, your community, your social circles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see diversity reflected in those spaces?
Okay.
Are there voices missing from the conversation?
That's a great point. It's about looking around and asking who's not at the table.
Right.
Whose perspectives are not being heard.
Exactly. And once you identify those gaps, you can start to take action.
Okay.
Maybe it's speaking up when you hear a harmful stereotype.
Yeah.
Maybe it's advocating for more inclusive hiring practices.
Right.
Maybe it's simply educating yourself about different cultures and experiences.
It's about being proactive and intentional in creating a more welcoming and equitable environment.
It is.
And I think it's also important to remember that we don't have to have all the answers.
No, we don't.
It's okay to ask questions.
Yes.
To learn from others.
Mm-hmm.
To be open to having our perspectives challenged.
I completely agree. Humility is key.
Yeah.
We're all on a learning journey.
Right.
And there's always more to discover and understand.
And I think that's where listening becomes so important.
Absolutely.
Truly listening to the experiences of marginalized communities.
Yeah.
Hearing their stories.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding their struggles.
Right.
And amplifying their voices.
It's about centering their perspectives and letting them guide us towards solutions.
And remembering that allyship is an ongoing commitment.
It is.
Not a one-time action. It's about showing up consistently.
Yes.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's challenging.
Because change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It requires persistence. It requires dedication.
Yeah.
And it requires a collective effort.
It's like building a bridge.
Yeah.
Brick by brick toward a more just and equitable world.
I love that analogy.
And every act of kindness, every act of courage, every act of allyship contributes to that bridge.
And I believe that even in the face of immense challenges, there's always hope. Because when we work together, when we lift each other up, when we refuse to accept the status quo, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
That's a beautiful vision, and one that I think we can all strive towards.
I agree.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a question. What is one small action you can take today to challenge marginalization in your own life?
It could be anything. Share an article on social media. Have a conversation with a friend. Donate to an organization challenge a harmful stereotype. Educate yourself.
Yeah.
Every action, no matter how small, makes a difference.
Remember, change starts with each one of us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it sparks some reflection, some learning, and most importantly, some action.
Until next time.
Until next time.